So for week 7, a lot of what we're doing this week is working with our templates. So I thought what I would do after looking at the content that I have for this week, I thought I'm going to do like a little pre-learn. This is something that if you've taken my class, you've seen me do. And as a way to kind of bring up the content that you may see in this week to what I went through. So the first thing I want to talk about is that you want to change or customize 95% of the content of your Bootstrap template. Okay. So what I have running right now is I have the original template that I downloaded, right? And now last week you spent some time getting to know this template. You now have a better idea of, where's the menu created in the HTML, right? What are these and how are they created? I mean, you should have an idea about this. Like, this would be an important thing for me, is like this background picture is an important thing for me to understand, but I need to modify this content, 95% of it. So either change it or customize it. Now, customizing it might look like this, right? Where there's a contact page, that's a fairly common thing, right? So, and this is my pretty much done site here, right? So when I go to my contact page, I could give it some custom content here, right? But in general, the point of this item is you need to modify that content, okay? And part of what you're doing now, and you're going to do some in this week, is plan out those pages, right? So this menu that you have on your template is what we're going to focus on Thursday night. But the thing I would show you right away is something I talked about last week, is the idea of a multi-page or a single page site. So now I can tell this one is a single, this is original template. When I hit resume, the URL doesn't change, which means it's not an actual page. Okay, if I hit portfolio, again, this is a single page. You might go, well, why can't we do that? Remember what I talked about last week about just getting the experience here. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is the idea of creating a new page. Right, so this is a page that needs to be linked from your index. Now this page is really just to get you into the experience of actually creating pages from your template. Okay, now I'm going to move over to VS Code. Right now in VS Code, and you do not have to do it this way. I kept my template somewhere. Now, if you downloaded it, you could have it there as well. And here's my project 0, right? So I like to keep my original template somewhere. You do not have to put it here on your public repo. I just did so that I could show some of the stuff I'm going to do. So in this case, I have an index file and I have an enter page, right? And I have a portfolio details. So I have some individual pages that came with my template. So there's a couple of ways I could approach creating a new page. First is I just create a file, right? Now I could either take an existing file, right, and I could take it and copy it, but I like to do it this way. I just like to create my new file. Now in this case, I'm going to create new page, and this is what you would do, .html. Now what would go in there is whichever starting position you would want to start with. So let's say on my enter. Okay, so this is my enter page, right? And if just looking at code here was like, oh, a little bit much, what I could do is just take that content. I'm going to select it all. I'm going to copy it, go over to my new page, and I'm going to paste it. Now that I've done that, I can move back to my browser. Here, this is my template, and I could just look at new page.html. And I could go, okay, see a couple of things here I like. Okay, this is probably not a bad page to start with. I could have used that one. I could have also used my index, whatever's in my index file. Like, I could have done that. But however you do it, right, you'll need to do that, is first create a new page. Now, for what I wanted you to do for this item is actually in the index file now, we could think about where could we place a link to that page. So let's go look, right? So again, this is where our sites are different, right? Let's let's see, in this, oh yeah, so now this is a really good point too here. I clicked on home and it didn't take me to the index file because these are anchor links, so again, in the same page, and I can tell that with the pound sign. So for now, I'd come over here and I'd go, okay, where would I put this new page? Well, maybe I would just modify one of these existing menu items just to get the experience of doing this, okay? So let's do that. So on my index page, I see, okay, here are, oh yeah, so these are the social links. Again, this is where the work from last week comes in handy. And if you ever, the other thing is right click inspect, really helpful here because you can look at, oh yeah, this is the div header, this is the flex column, that's the now what we're doing here is we're rendering it for mobile. So it's the content that we're looking at is still underneath there. But that's where getting to know that is important. And using DevTools is way helpful to doing that. And notice how it just kind of slides out. Okay, so now what I'd do is go to my index page and I would go find where my links are at. And I can tell just by looking, now this is my nav bar, it's my class, right? Here's my, oh, and I see an active class for the index file. So whenever I have these menu items, I can add this class to make those active. But for today, for that assignment, all I really do maybe is instead of resume, I would say new page.html. Okay. I do that. The other thing I could do, and this is based on if your site has, if you're, and I'm going to take it off of here, and then I'm going to place it right there. And then in here, instead of resume, I'm going to do new page. Okay. Now, when I do that, and I come back to my template and I refresh, then I see, ooh, I needed to take it off there. I guess I didn't. So now if I click on that, I will see that I have now created a new page, right? So what I'm really doing here, and I'll just bring this up so we can kind of look at it as we're going through, like I'm working on, let's see, week 7 here, right? You're going to have a lecture here and then create new page for your site. So then you're going to push that. Now I'm not going to show that because we've done that. You're going to do the version control, right? This will be up, you'll be doing this work in P0. I'm just showing you again my template to give you that. Okay, so we've done that. So now we're going to pick a topic. So now what am I moving on to? You'll have a couple of discussions. You'll have a lecture about CEO. Let's just look at it just so you have all that in here. So you watch 30 minutes of basics of CEO. This is a little bit advertising, but it was still good content. Here's the file name that needs to go in the lecture folder. And you only have to do, I don't even give you commits on that one, so that should be pretty straightforward. Okay, so then we just did this one here, and this is what I went over, the new page, right? And you'll give me your link to your P0 for that one, okay? You do have replies, and then we'll do one for frameworks, such an important topic for going to find, and you all need to find an individual one, right? Find one you want to check out. So then on Thursday night item, again, there's some content out there, but I'm just updating it. Now you have one video for CMS, Squarespace versus WordPress. So that's one video for this one. And then you'll have 2 videos in this one file, which will be for payments, okay? I should have made that. Oh, I did, right? So CMS directory, README is the file. So in this one, it's payments is the directory. README is still the file, but in here you'll have 2 videos. So make sure, and this one's pretty quick, make sure, and they're all both about payment gateways. Make sure you give me a different heading for each video and then put your content in there. Okay, so now let's talk about this one. Now you're going to build out, you're going to create your menu and the topic of your site. So if you've kind of been thinking about it, but you haven't decided, this is the time you're going to actually want to decide on that. And you're going to lay out your pages. Now in this case, you can just as a reply, right? You can kind of come through and talk about like on my index page, right? And you could Then maybe have, or you could call it your home. You could just call it home, right? And then you can use the nice little built-in features here inside of Canvas, Canvas WYSIWYG editor to then lay out, right? This would be your first menu item, right? Your second menu item. You don't have to do it like this, but then under here, you could hit tab and show us what pages, right? So this is you planning it out. Now you can do that here. Totally okay to do that. Really the idea here is to actually plan out the pages you think you're going to create. Now the alternative I give you is to actually set up a sitemap.html. You can try that as well, and that would be in your template. So you can do this whichever way you want. So I could take, right, and I could create a new file, right, and I'd call it sitemap.html. And then on my sitemap, I might take that new page because that was kind of a nice one. I could copy that content, right? Go over to my sitemap, and now I could start customizing this to include the content I want to have in here. These are my breadcrumbs, so here's my main content. There's really no content in here, so then I could come in here, and I believe it would be here. Actually, that's the footer, so it'd actually be up in here, right? So up in here, I could do like ULs, and I could do LI times 4 maybe, right? So, and then I could put menu or home. So this is where your basic HTML. Let me just refresh, and now I don't have this linked anywhere yet. Sitemap.html. Good. So now I have at least the begin. Now this is where I'd want to change this content at the top. But again, you can choose what you want to do as far as this part of the requirement. Now you want to create a landing page for each of your menu items, right? I'm demonstrating them here. There is another video, a little bit, a couple other semesters, but I thought I would show you here. Okay, so if I was looking at my final site, and I go home here, I notice I have an about, I have passions, I have family, I have sustainability, and a contact. So these are all in my ultimate site new pages. This is why I have you create the new pages, okay? So in this case, I created an about page, right? So that gives me my landing page. Now this already has content in it. Yours wouldn't have to. What you're really doing here for this assignment is creating the pages that would be for your menu, like so you plan out your menu, because what you want to do is take all the pages that you've in step this one, right, where you structured out and you thought. Now, by the way, you don't have to implement it this way. This just gives you time to work on the site. Okay, but here, let's say I was going to create the about and the passions page. Now, one thing I would do, because I want to make my life a little bit easier, I would actually do this. If I wanted to do this either from, again, the index page, I could do that. It has content, so I could get rid of that. But I have this inner page, right? So again, you can figure out whichever starting point, but because I'm building my first menu page, one thing I would do is this. First, I'd create a new page, about.html. I would take maybe that inner page content, copy it, and now on my about, I would then paste it over here, right? And then I would come down to my navigation here, and I would start modifying this, right? Because that way, whatever work I've done for my about page then gives me that same, I don't have to duplicate it when I go to do my next page. So I'll just give you a couple of these. Like instead of this being the index file being, and this is a link to the actual index file. It's called the hero, but it's basically at the top of the page. We could actually find it on here. Let's see, where would we find it? I'm just going to look for just a second here to find that link, or I'll come back and find it in a minute. Should have and all I'm looking for here, and I don't want to take too much time to do it, but it's in there, is these are your anchors, right? So instead of being hero in my example, I just make it HTML, okay? That's my home, right? And then on the about, in the case, instead of being a anchor link, I would make this HTML. And then what I would do is change, right? So I know that I'm going to have another menu item here. Well, what's it going to be? And this is where you start playing with what do I want that to be. So maybe mine, I think, was passions.html. Now, and then I would just be modifying this content. Now, I'm not going to do all of them because it would take more time than I want to do here, but I want to give you the idea. And then I would do that fun little thing where for the about, I would get rid of active here and I would put it on here. Uh-oh, cancel. I'd put it here. Cool, right? So now let's go look at. Now, by the way, what am I changing here? And this is important to think about. I'm changing the about page, right? So one thing I could do after I finish all this, and again, I haven't finished mine, but if you had, I could actually take nav to nav, copy it, come over to my index page, right, wherever that is here, and then if I've completed it, then all the work I've done, I benefit from, except that active. Well, let me show you that, and then we'll look at it. Okay, so I'm going to refresh. I'm going to go back to, again, I need to be, because those are all anchor links. If I go to home, I can see now I have my about, and that's that active class. But if I hit about, I can see that's that page. Now, just to make my life a little bit easier, I might also update that content where it's on the about page. Right, so inner page, I would say about. Okay, so then when I hit refresh here, I can see, oh yeah, I'm on the about page, right? Cool. And then on passions right now, the page doesn't exist, but I can create it, no problem, right? And on the home, that page of passions doesn't exist, but I don't have to duplicate it every time, right? So hopefully this gives you the idea of creating a landing page for each menu item. And then ensure all menu links work from the index.html. Again, you don't have to build out all this sub-content, but I'll just do one more. So let's say for a minute I have created passions. I've created all the links, updated them. I would then create a new page, right? And I'd call it passions.html. I'd take my about, because I've done all that good work there. I'd move it over to my passions. I'd paste it. I'd come up here, right? And this is where later you'll change the title, right? We'll talk about that right at the end here. Notice how my images, actually is one thing we're going to talk about. I might actually make a second video just for that. Let's see how far I get. And so this one would be about I'd say my passions, okay? And so that's on my passion page. So if I come over here, cool, I hit passions, and now I have that passions page done. And my menu works. Now, by the way, if you don't do this right now, you can do it later. I'm just kind of trying to work smarter, not harder, okay? So the last thing you're going to do, let's keep going. We're almost there, right? So now I'm not going to put this in here. You can do that. Again, you can either do the planning in the reply or you can do it in the index or the sitemap. So you're going to watch this video and you're going to create a new page, right? So from your, should be design, right? So he talks about really where to find free images. These days, it's so easy to create ones with your favorite AI tools. Find at least 3 images, right? And then add the original to this page. Now, this page, this images page, is a new page, but it doesn't have to be linked anywhere in your template or in your Bootstrap, right? It just is a new page, and this would be a great one where I would just create a new page, images.html. And this is where we're just getting more experience playing with our design. So I would take my inner page, I would copy that. And again, if you don't, here's the other thing I would say to you as I'm doing this. If you don't have this kind of inner page example, you could create one. You could take your index file, get rid of all the content, and I know I'm digressing a little bit here. Right, so this index page has all this content. I could really remove almost all this content out of here, and that could become a sample page for me, okay? So now what are you going to do here? On this images page, there has no content, so I would come up and I would actually put in here and just the content that's in here, right? Images. And this you can watch images, right? So what you're going to do on this example, coming back here, is either create, find, or generate three images, load the original size, then use this optimizer to actually optimize these images, because this is a big deal in web development, is actually taking images, because we want the best looking image at the lowest file size we can get. Okay, so then place those three images, the original ones and then the optimized and resized ones, right? Because you kind of want to resize things and you think about this the way they look on your page. Now, for me, one of my images is this important image in the background, right? Now this one, I'm probably going to want to spend some time figuring out where is it at. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go, okay, here's that, and how do I know? And this is the other thing that's really great about DevTools. I can drop that to see, oh, that's what is creating that background image, and that's the image. And notice how big it is, 1,920 by 1,280 pixels. This is a large image because it's going to scale, right? This wouldn't be the same as an image I maybe had on one of my sub pages, right? This would be a smaller. So that image right there would be one if I could run through Optimizer to make it file size smaller, but in that case I wouldn't probably want to resize it. But all my other examples, so you could have one that you might not resize but you optimize, but have at least two that you go through the resize. And we did that early on in class. So if you need help, I use something local for the Mac. There are online places to resize, but optimize is a nice one to use. If you have other places that optimize, that's fine as well. So in that page, that images.html, use the proper naming convention, right? All lowercase, no space. And so in this case, the other ones you were giving us a link to just your P0 so we could check out what your menu looked like and your new page. But this one just give us a link to that HTML page. Now this will not count as one of your 18 pages, 15 pages, but it's one you can remove later. But basically, when we look at this page, because I think I just created images.html, we will see images, the original, and then the optimized, and then the content you'll put on here. And again, this video probably is a good one to check out. Just shows you what I'm looking for as far as having those the original and then the optimized resized one. And you can say if you chose not to resize one, you can do that. But also, how big is it? How many kilobytes is it, right? Because that's something we think about. Now for me, it was under assets that my images were, right? So I could come in here and look at, okay, here's some of those images, right? Also down at the bottom, it shows me the resolution of them, right? And I could see, if I wanted to, but basically I want you to go find some images, and I probably would, here's my big hero image, right? It's the one I would replace. And you can see what I did on my original one here is I found my own image and I replaced that, and I replaced that image there. So really the idea is just for this exercise is for you to start thinking about your images again. The thing I'm saying in this week is the more time you spend actually doing work for your template, I mean, you can check the boxes and get the items done for this week, sure. But you can also give this intentionality, meaning, think through it, and you're going to really move the ball forward as far as creating your project zero. Okay, so how do you get graded? So now that you've watched me kind of quickly go through this, there is still content out there available. What you'd want to do is come up with 2 questions you would have about what I did here. Right, and post these questions in your reply, and then review other students' posts and answer at least one if you can of their questions, right? I will do my best to answer them as well, but your job is to answer at least one. If you don't know the answer, do some researching or some chatting. This is my new term, chatting, for Gen AI conversational stuff is to see if you can find the answer. If I don't get to it, that'll be part of your one reply that you need to do here. So I hope you have fun with this. I hope this is helpful to give you an idea about what we're doing this week, which is, like I said, a lot focused on your project zero. Talk to you later.